So this is about accreditation. This is for hopefully schools that are interested in becoming an accredited CCLE school. There are some schools that are going through renewal that need to be here as well. So this is very an important session for schools in that kind of a situation. CCLE school accreditation is based on 4 marks. We call our standards or rules or quality control items. We call them marks. And I'll share the marks with you. Mark 1 is the theological commitment. Mark 2 is the classical education commitment. Mark 3 is the governance commitment, or just governance. And Mark 4 is assessment and effectiveness. So 4 marks. These marks are also on our website, ccle.org. If you want to look them up, you can find them. We have CCLE school accreditation for 4 different levels. We have early childhood program accreditation. We have school of grammar accreditation, school of logic accreditation, and school of rhetoric accreditation. We've switched our terminology to be using classical terms instead of progressives. So, and the one thing I want to assure you is that if you're thinking about the process of accreditation, there are people to help you. Many schools have successfully survived it, and there are documents to help you. So you can always ask some help. I've laid out some of the documents that I have here afterwards if you want to go look through any of them. We have a document called the Benchmarks for Excellence of a Classical Lutheran School, and that goes through every single benchmark with the sub-marks, and it suggests what an excellent meeting would look like, what the required meeting of the benchmark needs to be, and what, for instance, might be beneath and not meeting the benchmark. So it also then has a list of possible documentation that you can use. And you don't have to have every kind of documentation. If you have a couple of them, the team appreciates a couple of them. They don't have to be an excessive number of them. The marks are also designed in such a way that one source, resource, or document might apply to multiple marks. So that if you have the church constitution for Mark 1, and it's also going to be supporting you in Mark 3, you don't have to put it in there twice. Just one time will suffice for that. So the benchmark for excellence, we also have a document called Application, Self-Study, and Site Visit Information. When we get a school that's kind of taking the plunge and, okay, we're going to do this, this kind of gives you a general idea of, okay, this is kind of what it's going to be like. This is what how it's going to happen. It's going to say things like the application. We used to have a template that you had to fill in, but many people's technology couldn't. If it's different technology, different software, they couldn't do it. It's just a plain Word document now. So we have it in blue and red because you're going to write in black, and that way you can tell what's the form and what is it that you're putting into the information that you're putting in. So we also have in some of our documentation, what are we looking for? And that's literally what it says. We suggest what might be proper documentation, but schools still have questions. Well, what does that mean? And so we're saying, well, this, but not that. So I'm going to share a few of these later on in this session. Again, in the benchmarks for excellence, It lists every component with the descriptors of excellent, meeting, or not meeting. It suggests the possible evidence for each component. And it also lists the scores that you have to get in each of them. So we do have a handful of marks and submarks that you have to meet. And if you do not meet them, we'll be having a long chat about that, and we'll have to reschedule. But that does not mean that you have to meet every single one of them. So if you have some areas that you need to work on, very commonly, schools may not have a strategic plan, or they may not have a 3 to 5 year plan. They may not have any way of annually checking their budget or their facility. They just haven't put it in writing. That has often been an area where we've made a recommendation. Sometimes the relationship between the school and church is not actually written in the Constitution or anywhere. So sometimes that's a recommendation. Those are not in the requirements that you have to pass. But in the benchmarks for excellence, it will tell you which ones you have to get a 2 or a 3 in. 2 is meets the benchmark, 3 is exceeds the benchmark. As I said, the application is a Word document so that people can be able to fill it in without any difficulty. And that's the type of hint or helpful advice that you would get from the application, self-study, and site information document. We've tried to do everything we can to make it user-friendly. There is a section of it about requirements to host the site visit. And by requirements, it's meaning to talk about the logistics and schedule, about the nitty-gritty, about how the team is going to get to the location, what's going to happen on each day. The team will need lodging, the team will need meals, and so it just literally is the schedule of what the team will be doing. So this is discussed. The same document talks about a budget worksheet, how to help a school anticipate what the expenses might be, and some suggestions for how to make the team as happy and comfortable as possible so that they're in a good mood when they're writing the report, which actually that's not really necessary. So when I mentioned this, what are we looking for in accreditation visits, that document, that provides an overview of what's expected from both the school and the team's perspective. So just like when you're teaching, you need to explain something in different ways, but you're explaining the same concept. That's what we're trying to do with that. So for Mark 1, what are we looking for in Mark 1, which is the commitment to Lutheran doctrine? Well, we're looking for Orthodox Lutheran doctrine and practices that are clearly aligned with Scripture and the confessional writings of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. I'm so impressed. I see everybody writing all this down. I will send you the PowerPoint by email, so that's why I'm taking your email addresses. So it's investigating and seeing how your school is incorporating and is just integrating our faith into our education. So not this chart literally looks like this. See? This, not this. So for Mark 1, we're looking for written documents that express the commitment. Probably going to be in your student handbook or your parent handbook. It's going to be in the newsletters every so often. It's just, you're going to be talking about being a Lutheran and mentioning your faith. Is there a clear connection between the sponsoring church and school? Or what is your connection to the Lutheran Church, to the Synod. Hopefully you have one. So, this Lutheran identity is present in all school communications. And I will give you the example of that. Not this is Lutheran identity hidden in school communications. Many of you know I have a connection with some people in Australia, and when my daughter was investigating some schools for their children to attend, obviously looking at Lutheran schools, they had this beautiful, glossy, 32-page recruitment brochure, and Lutheran was never mentioned until the inside back page, small print down at the bottom. They promoted their athletic program, they promoted their drama, they promoted their academics, but by the way, we're Lutheran. So, no, CCLE doesn't play that game. So, we will look for the Lutheran identity. We will check the faculty personnel pages to see if they are active members of the Lutheran Church. And we do know how difficult it is to get Lutheran faculty. And we've been pestering the Concordias to turn them out as fast as they can. So that's not one that would fail you. That would not prevent you from being able to be accredited by us. Yes, sir.
Do you mean synodically approved teachers or LCMS members?
They can be LCMS members. They do not have to be rostered. So, although if you attended the certification, they could be CCLE certified. And that the curriculum choices support Lutheran doctrines. So in other words, are you teaching evolution in your classroom? So that's, again, not this from Mark 1. For Mark 2, what are we looking for in the commitment to classical education? We're looking to see that clearly in use are classical instructional methods and classical content. And we have had such wonderful sessions this conference on classical content. And Cheryl Swope is getting out the new revision of the curriculum guide, curriculum resources. So there really is a lot of resources to help you with that. But this one covers kind of two parts because it's got the instructional activities that you're using, and then it's got the instructional material that you're teaching, the content and the methodology. So what does that look like? Well, hopefully, your teachers can explain the trivium. And I literally mean that they're familiar with the terminology of grammar, the grammar level, the dialectic or logic level, and the rhetoric level. And that they can talk to the parents about it comfortably in a way that helps communicate to the parents what the trivium, how it's implemented in your instruction. Okay? So, can the faculty name and use the instructional activities that are appropriate at each level of the trivium? So in other words, although we do recognize that memorization happens at every stage, excuse me, are you still doing fill in the blank for the rhetoric level senior year activities? That would not quite be as appropriate. So are you developing, is there I forget the word. Is it cycling up to a more rigorous level as you're going? Mark 3, what are we looking for in institutional governance? Does the school have and function within clearly articulated policies and procedures? Excuse me, and I would state these would be written policies and procedures that are in harmony with God's order of authorities. And we have a long appendix on this one of a lot of possible policies that your community might need. Now, does your school need every single page and a half list of policies? Probably not. You know your community. You will know what it is that your parents are. Excuse me. So much talking. What your parents are concerned about and what policies work for your school. So it's not that we expect every school to have identical ones, but thank you very much for thinking of that. So what does this look like? Again, is there written constitutional authority for your school? So is the school board or the school council, or how is the council that governs you established? Thank you so much. How does the school board function? Does it micromanage the administrator, or does it rubber stamp everything that the administrator wants to do? We find that out by talking with teachers and with parents. What are the policies that your school has? Are they written? Are they communicated? Are they enforced? You can have beautiful policies, and if they're not enforced, that's an entirely different situation. Mark 4, what are we looking for in institutional effectiveness or assessment? This is the mark where you do self-reflection and analysis to strengthen and improve your school. So do you have your own standards or your own benchmarks or your own goals, which you have for your students? Do you have them for your faculty? Do you have them for your financial situation, for your physical plan? You know, it's not just how are our students doing, how are our faculty doing? How are their families? Are we growing? Are we dwindling? What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? And what can we do about it? So again, this, not that. The school has expectations and goals as opposed to not having any, not thinking about it. You evaluate your progress on the expectations and the goals as to whether you're meeting them or what steps do you need still to take. And you make your plans based on the goals. So this is what you're doing every year when you're figuring out, well, how many sections of a class level do we need? How many teachers do we need next year? How many, what new textbooks do we need to order? What curriculum area are we going to be reviewing over the summer so that we will be knowing that we're doing the best that we can on it? So those are the 4 marks. And I've given you kind of a fast overview of what to do, from the school's perspective. So what's the best preparation for taking your school through accreditation? Serving on an accreditation team, visiting another school. When you see what another school has done, that really gives you great insight into what I could do at my school to demonstrate this. And your school will be different, but it's the same for benchmarks. So if you want to serve on a CCLE site visitor team, we have a help sheet. I think that it was mentioned in the announcements this morning. And one of the things that you can check is that you would like to participate on a site visit team. Now, if you're a teacher, that means you're going to miss school for a couple of days. So you have to do some sub-plans. We need a pastor on every team. We need a teacher on every team. And I'm going on every team because I love to visit schools. I really get a lot out of it. We have a document to teach you about this. If you want to serve on the CCLE team, we will go through the step-by-step process as a team member. You'll find out what school materials you'll have access to because we use Google Drive when we do a shared folder. Boy, that really has made life so much easier over the 12 years that we've been doing this. You will have to commit to doing some reading. You basically will need to read everything that has been sent. You will write the rough draft, and then you'll meet with the team as a whole, and we'll go through it. And you'll have to contribute to the logistics and schedule. So there's a little bit of responsibility to it. The qualifications to serve on the team: you must know and understand the marks of a classical Lutheran school. You have to be able to evaluate the school evidence that you look at to see whether it does support what the school is claiming that it does. You have to attend a conference accreditation session, and I have your names. So you have to be able to observe, summarize, and write portions of the final report. And you have to keep school information in confidence. You do have the opportunity to learn a lot of in-depth information about a school, but it is privileged information sometimes, so you will have to keep it secret. So, teams will consist of 2 to 4 people, depending on the size of the student body in the school. But they will always include a Lutheran pastor who is primarily responsible for the response to Mark 1, the commitment to Lutheran doctrine and practice. I also always participate on the team because, as I said, I love to go visit all of the different schools. Very good. The team may have one member from the same district, but only one. That way you're having truly an external team coming to observe you, to be objective. We will also avoid any conflict of interest with the school. So I would never visit a school that any of my children were involved as faculty members, for instance, or grandchildren been attending. So if there's some kind of conflict of interest, then that team member will just get reassigned to a different school. And very easy to do that. And whenever it's possible, we will try to assign team members from schools of very similar demographics so that you're familiar with the types of challenges that a school of that size of a student body faces. So a large urban school, we've got several of them. We will have the team with somebody from one of the schools visiting the others. The little schools, smaller enrollment size, we'll have somebody, that's an entirely, well, maybe not entirely, but that's many different challenges than from the larger one. So we will do that. Take that into consideration. Recent updates, and these, most of what I've shared with you to this point, you would have heard last year because it hasn't changed. But now I'm getting to the news. Okay. The fees have changed. It's now we have broken the schools down into 3 sizes. We have 49 students or fewer. We have 50 to 99 students, or we have 100 students or higher. So you kind of figure out which category your school fits into. The total accreditation fee for the 49 students or fewer is $500. The next level of 50 students to 99 has gone to $750, and 100 or more students has gone to $1,000. And I know that that is an increase, but we have the requirement that once you are an accredited school, every spring, I send out the request and you do an annual report and you report on what recommendations you've done, what steps you've taken, and you pay a per student annual fee, except in the year of your renewal. In the year of your renewal, now you will not have to submit an annual report, neither will you have to pay the annual fees. So you have the application or the accreditation fee or the annual school fees that would be due at the end of the summer. If you are interested, we do have an arrangement or a partnership with the National Lutheran School Accreditation that they will recognize our process and you can get National Lutheran School Accreditation by going through the CCLE process. And you do not have to repeat the whole process using the NLSA process. They accept ours. All you have to do is pay their fee. So it is a little bit of a break that way. Yes, sir.
Do they also require renewal also?
Yes, they do.
And then can they do it at the same time? Or they do it at the same time, so when you come out and visit the school again, will they accept that visit, the second visit as their
Yes, as long as you're paying their dues every time. I don't think NLSA charges annual fees, but their charge for accreditation,
Pretty high.
yeah, it's up there. So I think ours is still lower, but it's important for some schools to have both. And we are grateful that the National Lutheran Schools Association recognizes our process. We have that agreement with them. So I always want to make sure that if it's an important thing for you, that you know you can do that also. Okay. Does anyone have any questions for me?
On the three, scoring, what was it again?
One doesn't meet the mark.
Okay.
2 meets the mark. 3 exceeds the mark.
Now, does that replace what used to be recommendation suggestions and?
No, but I'm glad you brought that up. When the team visits, we can make commendations, recommendations, or suggestions.
Okay.
Recommendations can come if you get a score of 1, which does not meet, or a 2. You may meet it, but we still can give you a recommendation about it. A recommendation the school has to address. Sometimes the team thinks that we really want to suggest something, but we don't want to make it a requirement. So we can make a suggestion that the school can consider. They are not required to address it in the same sense that they have to address recommendations. Commendations, which happen frequently with a particular strength of the school, when you get scores of 3, those are great for your marketing program. You know, we'll say, oh, they have a fantastic, they have a strings program. Their music program is really outstanding, or their drama program, or they have an arrangement with a local college where there's a dual credit enrollment for the high school. So whatever strengths you have that we see, and sometimes the school hasn't even mentioned them in the self-study. But when we come in, again, as an external observer, we see something and we can say, hey, this is impressive. You may just thought this was the way it is everywhere. It isn't. So we'll give you accommodations for things like that. If you can get a commendation on all 4 of the marks, that's the criteria to be recommended to be an exceptional school, CCLE, School of Exception. So We've only had one of those schools in 12 years, so. So, and you had a question.
Is it a 5-year renewal process or how many years between?
It is, and in the application and timeline, it kind of goes through what happens in year 0, which is the year you're applying. And then year 1, 2, 3, 4, that's the annual report. And then year 5, because the year starts from the conference. Like at the banquet tonight, we'll be celebrating 2 schools that went through the process this year, although oddly enough, neither of them will be there. But, for good reasons, then their time starts this month, and then next year, they'll have to submit an annual report. Because your report looks back.
Yeah.
So, good question. Yes,
Travel expenses for the site visitors or not?
that's a good question too. The school is responsible for the travel, lodging, and feeding of the team members. The team members do not get a stipend. It's a volunteer action in that respect. Everyone is giving up of their own time. But the school will cover it so that they're not at least paying to come visit your school. So
Is the school that has the team visiting also responsible for the substitutes pay at the other school or not?
we have had to do that in a couple of situations. Yeah, that has arisen before, so. Sometimes the school that is sharing the teacher has, been willing to do it without being compensated, but sometimes we've had to cover the sub, so, or the school has had to cover the sub. Yes, any more questions? Well, I encourage you to come up here and kind of look at some of these documents to get an idea. We've worked really hard trying to come up with helpful, supportive, and clear documents. And at any time, you can email me. My address is accreditation@ccle.org. And as I said, I will go to my link tonight and email this PowerPoint to everyone whose email I have on the piece of paper. So